You asked for it. Here it is. It's a podcast from Apathetic Enthusiasm.
Coming to you live from Washington Dulles Airport during Christmas time, and there are terrorists occupying the whole place. One of the guys looks like death, but it's actually character actor William Sadler. Anyway, Summer didn't die hard, so we want to die hard too, here on Interdimensional IRSS, the unofficial Rick and Morty podcast.
Hello, everybody. I'm Travis.
Hello, everybody. I am Brandon. Now, before we get started in this episode, it is now time for Brandon Explains the Joke. You see, it's a play on words. Die Hard 2 is both a TOO and a TWO because that is, in fact, the location for the film Die Hard 2. Yes, William Sadler, who played Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and then the sequel, Bill and Ted 3. He was also in the first Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight. William Sadler, great character actor. You gotta love him. He was also in the premiere episode of Tales from the Crypt when it premiered on HBO back in the day. So anyway, that is your Brandon Explains the Joke.
All right, and on to our next segment. Travis explains the social media links. If you're brand new here, welcome to the show. We are going to be talking about the second episode of Season 6 a little bit later in our show. But before we get into all of that, if you want to contact the show or you have thoughts about any of the episodes, hit us up on Twitter at Rick and Morty Pod or on Facebook at facebook.com/Rick and Morty Podcast. We're on Instagram at Rick and Morty Podcast, or send us an email, rickandmortypodcast@gmail.com. Brandon is just collecting all the karma over on Reddit at rickandmorty.reddit.com or on our subreddit, rickandmortypodcast.reddit.com. And then you can go to our website, that's rickandmortypod.com, if you want to get any of our episodes or anything else from the show. We are streaming live right now over on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Apathetic Enthusiasm is where you can find the live stream. Go follow us over there so that you can get notified when we go live. If you miss the streams, you can go to youtube.com/Apathetic Enthusiasm. Catch video versions of any of our episodes over there. If you're watching this, like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. You know how it works. And then finally, if you want to support the show or any of our podcasts, you can go over to patreon.com/Apathetic Enthusiasm. That's where you can support the show directly with a bit of a donation, if you will. Big thank you to everybody that supports us over on Patreon. All right, that's out of the way. That's done.
Boom.
Brandon,
Man.
feeling good, feeling fresh.
Feeling
Biggest
great.
week of your life. It's
Woo.
it's time to make a podcast.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited about today's episode, Travis, because we got a lot of stuff going on. You know, we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of news.
We
you know,
do. Should we start our first segment, which is and forever will be semi-pertinent news?
Yeah. Semi-pertinent news.
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this. We have musical
shitty ska.
accompaniment. Wow.
Yeah.
Turning into a brand new man.
Semi-pertinent news.
I mean, I don't hate it. I gotta say. All right, first up in semi-pertinent news, congratulations to Rick and Morty for their huge premiere last week, of course. Season 6 premiered, and it was the most viewed cable program with young viewers. Breaking that down, Sunday's Season 6 premiere episode on Adult Swim was a ratings hit, winning its time slot across all basic cable. It was Sunday's #1 most watched telecast for women 18 to 24 and 18 to 34, and non-sports telecast. Very, very important distinction because you do have some football on Sunday nights. But for males 18 to 24 and 18 to 34, second most watched show total behind that Dragon show going on over on HBO. So yeah, it easily one of the most popular shows on cable right now for sure, and a huge kudos to everybody at Rick and Morty for the success I'm sure it will only continue into the future. You surprised by any of those numbers, Brandon?
No, I'm not terribly surprised. I will say that last Sunday, football hadn't started up yet, right? And this is week 1 of the NFL.
Yeah, you're right.
That we're in now.
Yeah.
So we might see a little bit of a down a
bit of
tick
a dip,
down.
a little dippy do, a little dippy dip.
Especially when we see the Dolphins beat the Patriots in week 1. Coach McDaniel going on 4th down and 7 with 28 seconds in the second quarter. I mean, who does that except players in Madden? You know what I'm saying?
And
check out
Chargers head coaches. Those are the only two. Those are the only two that do it.
Those are the only two. So check out our podcast, Dolphins and Chargers.
The Sports Bros coming. It's an Apathetic Enthusiasm podcast coming this fall.
What a worthless. It would be such a boring podcast because
Hey
neither of us
guys,
are.
we watched 15 minutes of a football game this week. Caught it while we were waiting to pick up our order at Wingstop. We're gonna break down all the details for you live in this episode.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch my game this week because it was out of service. And the
I
NFL
wasn't willing to pay the $5 for NFL Plus, and I have missed every football game. Yeah.
I just watch it on Bleacher Report. It actually it's about 10 minutes behind, but I get up to date pretty quick.
Apathetic Enthusiasm Sports, where we regurgitate everything we heard on other sports podcasts. All right. Moving on. Congratulations again, Rick and Morty. It's a great show. Yeah, we're fans. All right. In other news, if you have not been paying attention, you can get some special merch right now if you order from Morty's or on this dimension, Wendy's, using Uber Eats. That's right. There is a deal going on right now where if you order some Wendy's, especially, I think it's like a Morty's special, right? Or a Morty's combo. They have all sorts of Morty's swag that you could potentially win in that partnership with Uber Eats. So we're talking bucket hats, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatpants, tote bags, some sort of cup. Yeah, it's all there. There's probably gonna be a link in the show notes. I included it in the outline anyway. We'll see if Brandon includes it in the show notes. But yeah, it's cool looking stuff. It's all Morty's branded gear, but pretty exclusive, kind of exclusive stuff you can't get anywhere. So if you're trying to get some Wendy's and you don't want to drive your car or something, then you can use Uber Eats. This again is not a paid promotion by us, so go ahead and don't use Uber Eats either. I don't care. See if I care. Were you just literally entering the contest again live on the show while I was breaking it down, Brandon?
Yeah, that's well, you know me too well, Travis. That's exactly what I was doing. So if you can actually, if you go to
I could see the reflection of it in the golden Rick head in the corner of your video.
If you go to the official rules, you can click a link. You don't actually have to order Wendy's from the Uber Eats app to enter. You can enter once a day for free. Basically, you put in a code, you go to a website, you put in your address, blah 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 blah, and then it'll take you to a site, and it'll say if you won or if you didn't win. I know Scary Terry actually, I think he won a shirt. I think he was trying to win the sweatpants, but I think he won a shirt. I have not won anything. However, it does tell me that we didn't want to leave you empty-handed, so here's 50% off, up to $15 on your next Wendy's order on Uber Eats.
Man.
Use the promo code RiggityRiggityRect at checkout. Promo expires 9/11. Hey, it expired yesterday. So maybe you can't do it anymore.
Oh,
but,
all right. Well, good
at
thing
least
you
you
didn't
had
just
this-
give out a promo code on our show for an actual product.
Also,
Anyway,
go to Australia, get your
get your Rick
get
and
your
Morty
Szechuan
sauce. All right. Yeah. Yeah, maybe this promo's over too, and we're just spouting old news. All right. Speaking of old news, put your finger on the button, Brandon, because it is time for what may be our very last Wormageddon update.
Worms update 2020. 2022. The worms are taking over. Yes, that's it. That's it. It is the final Wormageddon update. Well, I think last week we said it was the final Wormageddon
We
update.
did, but then Adult Swim came out with this video on September 10th. It is the Wormageddon, the recap. You can check it out over on Adult Swim's YouTube page, but we're gonna play a little bit of it in the background for our video viewers right now too. Basically, what this is just it's a montage video. Your second favorite, maybe your first favorite podcast host does appear. I don't know. Drop some names in the chat. There he is. There's Brandon right there. If you're watching on the video. But this is a really cool video, sort of encapsulating everything that happened across Wormageddon. There's some great shots, views of the different statues and the different sculptures in all the different locations, some cool interviews with fans and things like that. All of the winners, I think, or at least most of the winners, are featured throughout the video. So, it's just a really cool recap, cool to see, and an opportunity for Brandon to be officially trademarked in the video in his own unique and special way, Brandon.
That's right. So when I got to the top, they did their little interviews with me. They talked to me a couple different times, and I mean, you know how awkward I am, Travis.
Oh, I do.
People who are listening, Omar's in our Twitch chat. He knows how awkward I can be, and my defense mechanism is to like kind of joke out of situations, but like joke in a weird kind of silly way, right?
Yeah.
And so I was going towards the cliche of saying like, they're like, how do you feel about this? And I was like, it's the cat's pajamas. That's where I was going with it. The cliche cat's pajamas.
Yeah.
But as I was saying it, I'm like, I don't want to say pajamas. I don't want to see this cliche. So I paused. And in my head, like a split second, I was like, "What rhymes with pajamas?" Bananas, obviously, like the famous show. So I said, "It's the cat's bananas."
What I love about it, and what is the most special to me is not only do they use your cat's bananas quote, but they put up the iconic Adult Swim black screen with white text. Yeah. They spell out, someone had to type cat's bananas, and then they put a little trademark logo right next to it. That's special. That is certainly very special. So, if you have not seen the video, go watch it, go like it, go favorite it, go comment about the cat's bananas.
Right.
Yeah.
And cats do not. They have enough pajamas at this point in time, right? They've got like a whole dresser full of pajamas. Yeah, they got the ones with like the buttons and the hole in the butt, right? And like the classic ones. They've got like the whole suit ones. They've got just long johns, all different types of pajamas. They got like nightgowns. But what they don't have, which is kind of depressing, is they don't have enough bananas. And
I heard that.
So
I heard that. And thanks to a quick Google search, that it's good to know that cats can have bananas, and that while bananas aren't toxic to cats, they can cause digestive issues. So hopefully cats have an appropriate amount of bananas.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to eat the bananas. They can have like their own like little banana orchard. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, banana orchard. A banana orchard. I wonder if bananas have the same effect on cats as cucumbers do, where if you place a banana next to a cat, I wonder if it will jump in surprise or terror, like if it sees a cucumber and thinks it's a snake. I don't know. Anyway, that's your Wormageddon update, everybody. Go watch the video. It's really cool. It is now time for a couple of semi-pertinent staples. First and foremost being the Reddit post of the week. Brandon, what do you got?
All right, so Acorn Moth, username Acorn Moth, also known as G Pranks over on Twitter, who we've known for a while, worked on Rick and Morty comics, who is also part of the Wormageddon Discord. I'm really happy to see Acorn Moth here in the Reddit post of the week. There was two options. The other one was just an ad for the God of War, the Rick and Morty God of War.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not giving you credit for posting a link to a video. But anyway, so the post is Rick collecting pets that may destroy Earth in seconds. And Acorn Moth, aka G Pranks, they created this image. They reached out to me and they're like, hey, I put my post out here. You're a mod. Like, why isn't my post showing up? And I'm like, here, I'll see what I can do. They reposted it, and then it did come up, and I made sure it was approved, and I could comment it on everything. So I'm really happy to report that with 8,000 upvotes, receiving the Wholesome, Helpful, and Silver Awards, only one report for pirated leaked content, which is that's absurd, and a 97% upvote rate. It is a picture that they drew of Rick collecting these cute little pets that may or may not destroy the Earth in seconds. So shout out, congratulations for being the Reddit post of the week. Proud of you.
Yeah, a couple of cool things to point out on this drawing before we move on. One, obviously, Mr. Frundles is in his cage that we see in the season 6 premiere. There's also like a Mr. Frundles cloud floating off in the distance in the background, which is interesting. And then I just like Rick's casual like street gear, right? Like he's got like a red hoodie on instead of his classic lab coat. He's just a chill Rick, just like a real chill guy, I think they're just like that. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's an awesome drawing. Congratulations. Very good stuff.
Very, very good. Very good stuff. So thanks again. Congratulations. And now, we still got an episode to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into this. Travis, it is time for the Dan Harmon social media minute.
Dan. All right. So Dan Harmon social media minute. In this one, Dan Harmon is clearly replaying Cyberpunk 2077 and loving it. This is just a still photo of Johnny Silverhand from the aforementioned Cyberpunk video game, with a caption that reads, "Never a good time to bring this up, but Cyberpunk's timeline gives us less than a year before Johnny Silverhand gets flatlined at Arasaka Towers. Rest easy, Choom." And it's hashtag 2023 and Fourth Corporate War. That's right. If you haven't played Cyberpunk, none of this makes sense to you. I hope they've continued to work on the game and worked out some of the bugs for everybody. But yeah, so yeah, Dan's playing Cyberpunk, and you should too if you haven't played it before. So that's the show. That's the post of the week. Yeah, I don't know. He's coming down off of a high of the season premiere and the Emmys. Like, yeah, he's doing his thing. It's all good.
He's doing it. He's doing it to it. Also, the studio that does Cyberpunk, they just announced their DLC, which will release in 2023, which means I get to go back to the game and enjoy it. Maybe that's why he's digging into it.
Could be.
Maybe
Yeah, it's like a police expansion or something like that, or I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Military, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah,
Cyberpunk, it's a game, but we're not going to talk about it anymore because it is now time for the moment you've all been waiting for. It is the reason we make this show. It is time for my favorite segment and yours. It's time for the main thing.
Yeah. It's the main thing. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Improvised instruments here on the podcast.
By the way,
yeah,
that song brought to you by Kirkland's Alkaline Water, pH 9.5. My brother-in-law says that it doesn't leave you feeling bloated if you drink all this water. And I gotta say, I have not felt bloated drinking this Kirkland brand alkaline water.
This episode brought to you by Kirkland products. That's right. Costco sponsored us. That's not true. None of that's true. We got us an episode. It's season 6, episode 2. Rick, a Mort Well Lived. Air date 9/11/2022. Written by Alex Rubens, who wrote Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. Thank you, Brandon, for doing that research.
Honey Rick.
you got to help me with this. Is it Kyung-hee Lim is the director?
Kyung-hee Lim. We're just
Okay.
gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Who has directed other episodes, by the way?
Okay.
A few other episodes. So throwing that out there.
right, I think I know who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about them before.
Yeah. And then guest stars, obviously Peter Dinklage, Nolan North, Phil Lamar, Maurice LaMarche, and Lauren Tom, all providing their voices for this episode. The bronopsis for the episode: Roy's our boy, bruh. And then our synopsis: Rick and Morty plays a most dangerous game. Summer is the most dangerous game. So there you go. There you go. Those. He's a smart one. That Brandon.
Now time for Brandon's explaining the gag. You see, there's a book called The Most Dangerous. Okay. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get into this. Obviously, the title is a reference to Roy, A Life Well Lived, which we originally saw in the Jerry Baree Blips and Chits episode way back in the day.
Deep cut.
And so as far as titles go, obviously it's a reference to that. So we talking about the themes here. So there's a couple things, right? We got our A plot, which is really where all the meats and potatoes are going to come into talking about this episode, and then we have the B plot, which is the 42 times it's mentioned of the Die Hard. And so I think somebody in Reddit counted how many times they say Die Hard. I wanted to count how many times they said Die Hard. But somebody said it was 42. Somebody fact check us just to make sure that
somebody let us know.
We'll go with it. 42 times.
But
so that's
before we break into these A plot, B plot, classic interdimensional IRSS synopsis breakdown type shenanigans, I think it's important to note that this episode, coming off of a huge premiere, we just talked about the amazing ratings it got. This is a very simple, in and out, 22-minute adventure. Like we spent most of the last episode talking about canon and internal references and plot lines and new big bads and all this stuff. And then here comes right behind that episode, like a bottle episode, like self-contained, no real impact on the rest of the universe, which I was not as engaged with the Rick and Morty subreddit responses, especially the post-show responses. I was watching the live stuff. Did that come up a lot? Were there a lot of people that felt some kind of way about this not having anything to do with Rick Prime or anything else?
So I would say that compared to last episode, and maybe that's where we start is comparisons to the premiere and this episode, where the premiere was very, very lore based, very deep into that, and just taking us in a direction for the show's serialization, and then coming into this episode where there are maybe some character beats there and character not circumstances, but stakes that we can get into here in a little bit, but not as much, right? This is, as you said, a bottle episode essentially. I think that folks really like the lore stuff, and like the fans of the show for the first episode, they were like, yeah, like all in. I think when it came to the Roy bits, for the most part, everyone liked that. The Die Hard bits, I think people were more like, yeah, okay, that was a joke that was run into the ground. type thing.
All right. Fair enough. And I feel like there is a pretty broad fan base for this show. There are some older viewers, present company included, that know that are familiar with Die Hard, know the show, know the movie, and appreciate again those external references that the show has always had about referencing pop culture, different movies. I mean, from the very beginning, you have the Inception and Jurassic Park type, entire episodes built around those premises. So the idea of throwing a Die Hard B plot into this definitely is in the DNA of this show. It's definitely something that's always been a part of what makes the show great, in my opinion. But I could see, especially for a younger audience who is closer to, say, Summer's age, who probably hasn't seen a Die Hard, they can go one of two ways, right? They can either completely be turned off and be like, all right, this is dumb, I don't get any of these jokes, or they may be like, all right, that was kind of interesting, maybe I'll look up this movie and check it out because I need to figure out what they're talking about with all of this.
Yeah, as I watched it with my 10-year-old again, we watched the episode before, watched it again last night, and I looked over at him and, hey, have we showed you Die Hard? He's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, oh, yeah, okay, all right, add that to the list of things that I need to influence my
this Christmas. This Christmas, everybody gathers around the tree, and you put on the classic Christmas movie, Die Hard.
Well, and even in like the post-episode discussion thread, I put in there like a joke about Christmas, but I noticed a lot of people in the thread being like, I've never even seen Die Hard, and yes, I know that as we get older, that the references start going away. I remember maybe about like 20 years ago, I was at like this lock-in for the library, for teens, right? And I was talking to a group of kids, and they're like, I was like, yeah, it's like the Wizard of Oz, and they had no idea what I was talking about. And in like Wizard of Oz, what that came out like the 50s, right? Whatever.
I think it's older than that. I mean, yeah. It's
Okay. Yeah.
probably like 30s or 40s, maybe 50s. I guess it could be 50s. Jeez, if only I had a Google box in front of me.
if only. But anyway, but that was shocking to me at the time.
1939.
39. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Die Hard came out in '88, so it is old, but it's not that old. But like, it is getting to the point now where, like, some of the references that are in our pop culture, and this is kind of just a more kind of broad discussion, references that we have in pop culture. It's like me going back to Mystery Science Theater 3000 in like the 80s and 90s, and they're all referencing shows and movies that I'd never seen before. And I got some of the references, and I laughed at those references. Some of the things they said I didn't understand. I still thought were funny, but like I was like just laughing because I wanted to be a part of the laughing.
Sure.
That, honestly, like, some of this episode kind of goes into that, where Peter Dinklage, as the alien, talks about how we have these myths that we build up over time, and in different cultures, everybody has their version of Die Hard. Tower Man, the Centurions talk about, like, I forget the quote he uses, like, it's difficult.
One who has the
or
foolishness to die or to attempt to die or something like that.
Yeah. Like that. There's a joke in that, like almost acknowledging that, like, yes, this is an old reference, and people are going to start not knowing these references, but they are kind of ingrained in the pop culture of the people who are currently making movies, currently making TV shows.
Yeah.
It's there whether or not our younger Gen Z brothers and sisters actually know that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right.
I went off on a tangent, but
but it's a good tangent, and I think we'll dissect these two sides of the episode a little bit more as we move forward. Do you want to start with the A plot and with Morty being stuck in a video game, or do you want to stick with this B plot and talk a little bit more about the Die Hard elements of the episode?
I said we were going to talk more about the A plot, and then I just I went into this whole thing about the B plot with the Die Hard bit. Maybe we'll just stick with the B plot for now.
All right.
So
obviously,
flip the script.
and I put it in here, but like there were a lot of Reddit comments, as you mentioned, of people not watching Die Hard or not having seen Die Hard, not knowing what it is. I for me, I think this episode, like the B plot, is still funny, not having to know like all of the Die Hard references. I think that the comedy is elevated. I think some of the jokes land more if you have seen it, because there are clear references where like something is said and you're like, oh, that sounds like yippee-ki-yay instead of walkie-talkie Die Hard or something. Like you're hearing similar things, or they're referencing specific, oh, don't shoot the glass, like all this stuff, right? So but at the same time, the B plot is about the fact that Summer is 17 years old and has never seen Die Hard. And so she's just trying to kind of like make it up as she goes based on like very vague cultural references that she's already heard already, right? Like when people talk about Die Hard around Christmas time, you probably see a meme of John McClane in an AC vent or something, or like in the HVAC tunnels and things like that. So
good time, have some laugh.
yeah. So I feel like they do a really good job of Summer just trying to roll with that based on what little, if anything, she knows about Die Hard. And then eventually the progression, I don't know if they applied Dan Harmon's story circle to this in its entirety, but there is a point where she ends up finding the book, learning about the culture and the traditions of Die Hard, right? And this is actually allows her to get the upper hand on the terrorists and tape a gun to her back and win the day. So
Yippee dippy do. Yeah, I love there. So there are these references. Like if you've never seen Die Hard before, Tower Man makes no sense, right? If you have no reference of frame of reference of what Die Hard is, the Nakatomi Plaza, where John McClane in this first film, played by Bruce Willis, directed by John McTiernan, is in a building. He's a cop in LA. He's trying to get his estranged wife back, and then the terrorists take over the building, and in this gigantic skyscraper, and so that's where the whole plot of the movie takes place. So Tower Man, that doesn't necessarily land. The book that the Peter Dinklage, his character is reading, is called the Nakatomi Paradigm, which is the Nakatomi Plaza is the building that they were in Die Hard.
Yeah.
So some of those like very, very specific references, someone who's never seen it, never understood that reference it's not going to land as well. Like the Easter egg isn't going to land as well. But I will say that I think they do a good enough job of like basically explaining the plot of the Die Hard.
Yeah.
That perhaps people will be like, oh yeah, I'll go. Maybe I'll go check it out. And then they'll get into the arguments eventually about whether it's a Christmas movie, which I personally think it's a Christmas movie, but
I mean, obviously. So I want to flip the lens a little bit here now. So we've talked a lot about maybe the younger fans or the fans that have just been unfortunate enough to not have seen Die Hard in the past. But what about the Die Hard fans, right? What about the people that watch the movie every year, or it's a tradition in their family. They grew up watching the movie. They love it. They saw it in theaters several decades ago. They are finally. They've been a Rick and Morty fan. All these other movie properties have been, parodied or referenced in prior episodes, and then finally, they get their Die Hard episode. Does this episode do justice to the Die Hard franchise, and in acknowledging the movie and sort of paying homage to the Die Hard series? What do you think?
I I think it does, and then it goes into the post credits stinger,
Yeah.
which is a reference to Die Hard 3. I think it does. What's kind of interesting to me is whereas previous episodes, we'll say like Anatomy Park or um
I
uh
I think the space snakes like episode is the way that that turns into like a Terminator episode, right? Like it they're not necessarily calling it a Terminator episode, but like it that's like a Terminator episode. Like there's
uh,
yeah.
but you know like the difference is like whereas those episodes are kind of they're they're not saying it is they're they're counting on the viewer to just kind of hey, oh, this is a reference. Okay,
Yeah.
I understand Anatomy Park. I understand Inception.
Yeah.
That's a thing. All right, cool. This one was like, hey, Die Hard, Die Hard, Die Hard, Die Hard. Die Hard. And so there's the subtlety is not necessarily there.
Sure.
It's the anti-humor of like the classic Peter Griffin from like the second season of Family Guy, where he hits his knee and he goes ah for too long, and that makes it funny, right?
Right.
So I think that's what this gag is with a Die Hard. I I I think it does a good enough job just incorporating the blips and shits that's good in that way. Um, what do you think about? I have another thought. Just one last thought on the Die Hard stuff.
Yeah. No, I think it's great, and I mean I've watched the original Die Hard several times, but I'm not like fully up to speed on all of the Die Hard films. I think I've seen all of them, but it's been a long time since I watched Die Hard 3. The dude holding the sign was like the only thing I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. That's Samuel L. Jackson's in that one, isn't he?" Like, yeah, that happened a long time ago before he became started wearing an eye patch in all the Marvel movies. Anyway,
who are you trying to offend? Everybody.
everybody, yeah. I think it's
miss my brother.
I think it ends up being a funny premise. To me, it's elevated by the knowledge that they spent a lot of time working on the A plot, and Dan Harmon was literally just like, "Go do a Die Hard," and that was the inspiration for them running with the Die Hard gag. So for me, I really love that, and I don't know, I find myself referencing the B plot Die Hard stuff more in this episode than I do a lot of the A plot stuff, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're good to be honest in that way. The last thing I want to say, we're going to get into. I think the A plot. The reason the A plot is not as talked about it's because it's more of an existential kind of philosophical thing, right?
Sure.
And so that makes it a little, a little, I don't want to say pedantic, but it more clinical or, like we both have our Greek robes on and we're sitting around a fire and like, yes. In 1622, Theseus said, "To be who Gremlin is to be who Gizmo was." Stuff like that. That's stupid. I have the Gremlins books next to me, and so it's on the top of my mind. But what I want to say, the last thing I wanted to say about the Die Hard stuff was talking about like the myth when Dinklage talks about the myth and stuff like that. I know that there's this kind of academic kind of study about myths and mythology and heroes, take archetypes, what have you. So like even in like the Joseph Campbell stuff, like story circles, all that type of stuff, you have like man versus nature, you have man versus man, all of those things. I think it's interesting, and it would be kind of cool to break down somewhere else, not here, not right now, about like this idea that all these different space cultures around the world, they end up all coming back to a an archetype of a man who is trying to get his wife back
From a
again,
tower, like fighting against terrorists. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
overwhelming foes, you know, man versus God, you know, like trying to get the fire, fighting Medusas, you know, all that type of stuff. It's
Yeah.
classic
Classic.
through the ages.
The classic Tower Man archetype. That's
All
right.
stories are recycled is basically same thing with songs, right?
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right,
All right. Well, that's your B
let's get it.
plot. Let's break down this A plot. We should have
5 minutes.
brought
Talk about the A plot.
we should have brought someone way smarter than us onto this, but obviously this A plot, the main plot, where we start in this episode, is inside the game of Roy, which viewers will be familiar with from the past episodes. But it starts off. It's a little jarring at first because you have all of these different characters who we're given no clues who these people are, but they're all definitely voiced by Justin Roiland. so we're like, all right, that guy running the convenience store and all those teenagers hanging out in the parking lot, they're all Justin Roiland voices. That's weird. All right. And then we soon find out that, in fact, all of these non-playable characters are stuck in Roy, and that Morty's consciousness has been fractured across, 5 billion people. And Rick has hacked into the game as Roy in an attempt to try and get all of the Morty pieces back together and free them. And, very quickly, right, there are a lot of theological observations about humanity's forming of cults and religions and things like that, because as this Roy comes out and says, "Hey, you are all Mortys, you are all my grandson," the immediate reaction is for them to form some sort of cult or religion with amongst themselves. Yeah, I don't know.
You're all my children now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more Hellraiser when I say that. Or Freddy Krueger. It's Nightmare on Elm Street. He holds his one is his claw out there. He's like, "You're all my children now." And then he opens up his shirt, his striped shirt, and he sees all the souls, kind of like trying to cut out of his chest. It's a great image. I recommend Dream Warrior. Okay. I think that even in the after episode, inside the episode, Harmon talks about the A plot a little bit, about the theological observations. He talks about that whole simulation theory or hypothesis that we are all in the actual simulation. And he thought it was an interesting concept to go in and talk about, like, okay, well, like, if we are all, if the question is whether or not we're all part of a 14-year-old boy or 13-year-old boy, like, do we all come together for something greater and beyond ourselves, or do we just want to be like, you know what, I just want to be who I am right now. I don't need all that extra. I don't want to be a part of a whole. I just want to be myself, who I am right now.
Right.
And so that's an interesting question.
There's a lot
Harmon
of
says,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go. I was gonna say just his quote, which is, "You might have some better gig as an unenlightened tripe in someone else's fractured amusement." Direct quote from Harmon there in that inside the episode.
Which is like a really interesting thing that comes up in this episode, right? Where especially early on, when very few people realize that they're part of Morty or have or understand what's really going on, there are a lot of versions of Morty that are like, we're Jewish, and like I work at the store, or like this, I do these things. Like, they accept that part of who they are because it's almost easier, or it's more comfortable than the idea of being part of a 14-year-old boy that wants to eat pizza and masturbate, right? Like, that's different, right? And that comes up later when you know, Marta's dad, right, Larry, is on his deathbed, and he's like, no, I don't. Like, I want to be a 14-year-old boy now. I don't want to die in this bed. Like, after all this, like, all this has gone on. Like, no, let me eat pizza. So, I don't know. It is really interesting to kind of think about that aspect of it. I have some weird, like, challenge questions for you. If
Sure.
if you were stuck in a video game or knew someone that was stuck in a video game and had their consciousness spliced against, you know, 5 billion people, how would you try to convince someone that they were stuck in a game and that their reality wasn't what they thought it was?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, so the difficult thing is what are the mechanics of this game?
Sure.
Hey, Roy's off the grid. He doesn't have a social security card. Um, like if you have if your consciousness is based in a reality, say how we are talking right now in podcasting, uh, and then all of a sudden we go into a game, we're broken up into 8 billion different people. And in this game there's a bunch of spaceships, there's sci-fi stuff. There's something about it that is off, that is off kilter, that doesn't match the reality of what you know is actual reality. That's the kind of thing that I would lean towards. The difficulty here in this Roy game is that it is basically just normal reality.
Yeah.
There's nothing special about it. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah.
That makes it infinitely more difficult, I think, to try to convince you. Like if I'm talking to you right now, say we're in a simulation right now, and on this podcast, there's nothing I can say to you right now because you have your beliefs already.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, I know that this is what you believe, your worldview, your religion, whatever. You already have that. I'm not convincing you otherwise.
Yeah, I think that, and I think that's something that I think that's a commentary that the writers are making with this episode, right? Is that it is, especially when everybody has their worldview or their perspective, it's very hard to change that, and it was difficult for Rick to do that in the beginning, right? When he kind of just got up in front of people and said, "Hey, here's what's going on," and there was a very broad variety of people that are like, "I'm your grandson? Wait, I thought I was your grandson." And it really wasn't
less God here.
it really wasn't until the Marta character comes in and sort of breaks it down for people in a way that's easier for them to understand, probably because
Yeah.
it came from a fellow part of Morty and not necessarily coming from Rick, right? Like there's a shared experience there. Maybe it's different, right? And so I don't know, there's some commentaries there about how you can associate with people, and I think it's interesting that the early version of the Mortys is a bunch of young people at like a house party, you know, playing guitar and tambourines and stuff, right? And they're all wearing yellow
group.
shirts. What? Yeah, like a youth group or something. Yeah. Yeah, like they're young, impressionable. They'll figure it out early, and then eventually help spread the word. But
well, I think you're on something there, because like I'm an atheist. You are, you have faith. You're religious.
Sure.
Like we have. I think it would be easier for you to accept something from somebody else, right? Like that. Like I don't want to minimize anything here, but I think just like when there's humanity has some kind of shared kind of goals, aspirations. Sociologically, we have the same motivations deep down inside. We want to be a part of something. We want to be a part of community. We stem from from cavemen, where we are a very social species.
Yes.
And so there are these at the core of everything, there are things that we all have in common. And what you're talking about with the Marta character coming in, like being a Morty, being a part of a Morty, speaking to that universal core truth for the other Mortys, other versions of Morty, in a way that Rick is not a part of.
Yeah, he can't express it the same way, right? He can't understand it at that level, and that ends up being sort of the turning point, right? I put a note in here about how Rick can't Rick his way out of this one, right? Like we love exploring the empowering and depowering of Rick, right? And this is a situation where Rick can't just invent something necessarily. He can invent things within the context of the game, right? He's handcuffed, so to speak, by what the game will allow, right? So he knows the game engine will keep running even if they exit to the outer reaches of space, which is beyond the game's programming. But so like he's figured out a way to hack it, but he can't, in classic Rick fashion, just like portal out of it, or use some invention, use something of himself that is going to fix this problem. So I think that's an interesting part of this as well, is he has to use what's available to him within the game to make this happen, and he can't just like do it on his own. It requires all of those Mortys coming together, and through the course of this episode, utilizing the Marta character to kind of become the lead person that helps rally all of those folks together. With that, I think we see a lot of different factions crop up amongst the portions of Morty, right? You have obviously different nations, but you have those that align very easily or very quickly with the idea that they're part of a Morty. There's like an 8% of outliers early on. Eventually we get an entire war. But I think it's interesting that beyond sort of like religious tones or I don't know, like commentary on that, there's also an underlying commentary about, I guess, personality and Morty's personality and his subconscious, and the different aspects of who Morty is. And I think there's always been a portion of Morty that's been willing to go along with his grandfather on all these crazy adventures and do what Rick says and not really fight back. But there's at least that 8%. And sometimes it's more than 8%. Sometimes it's 50%. Sometimes it's more than 50%. But there's always been that other side that's like, all right, Grandpa, I don't know if you know what you're talking about, or I don't think you're doing the right thing. I'm going to fight against this. And I think it's interesting to depict that as a portion of the world's population and see how that sort of inner turmoil, right? Because it happens when Rick, as Roy, is unwilling to say that he loves his grandson. And that results in this huge war within Morty's personality of like, but he loves us, but he doesn't. And he struggles with that for what ends up being decades of game time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because to think of how much of any part of you makes you in any kind of decision that you make from any time. Like even like I'm gonna bring up the Golden Rick head for a second. Going back to that whole getting out of the house, deciding to go turn around, go into the unmarked driveway, and decide whether or not these guys in Malibu are going to call the police on me or not, right? Like,
Sure.
How much of a part of me in that situation, like if we were to quantify it, how much of me was fighting against that, was being like, Brandon, all these voices in my head, Brandon, don't do that. No, that's just going to be socially awkward when it happens. And another part be like, no, it's fine. Go back up there. Maybe like 8%, right?
Sure.
What happens when 8% of that goes away? Does that mean I drive all the way back to my house empty-handed and be like, no, it's not worth it. I'll go check someplace out. Like that's the thing that happens to Morty at the end of the episode, because there's a percentage of Morty's personality that doesn't trust Rick. Morty leaves. They, however many billion, get on the spaceships. They fly out. They fly out past the game. Morty is gone. There's still 8% or whatever percent still in that game. That percent that doesn't trust Rick for whatever reason. And it goes into like the final line, which is Morty saying, Rick, I implicitly trust you. And someone being like, is Morty okay? Like, yeah, he's fine, right? There's a trust there that is not he lost something there. He lost a critical a piece of his thinking to be like, I don't want to go on this adventure with Rick, or this is stupid, or his confidence maybe is lost. And some people in the Reddit, that's what they're postulating, right? Is that this is their way of kind of regressing Morty back into season 1, season 2 Morty, much more compliant, and just going with the adventures versus being like, no, Rick, no, that's no, like a season 3 premiere, right? Like, Rick is a guy who's gonna, ruin your family.
I think it's possible. I think it is. It will be very interesting if this ends up being something that the writers use to long-term sort of, quiet Morty's voice in terms of his fight against who Rick is or what he wants to do. I do feel that's a little bit in contrast to the point that I feel like they were trying to make at the end of season 5, where they really try to drive the point home that it is a balanced relationship moving forward, right? Like, they need to be partners. They have to push that lever together, and it can't just be Rick in the lead and Morty being dragged behind. So we'll see. I mean, I think there's always going to be times when the writers are going to fall back on that idea that Rick's in control and Morty is, scared, because that's part of what makes the show hilarious and fun. But I think there's always going to be that play of that power and balance. But yeah, I think, 8% did 8% stay behind? Did just Marta stay behind? Who's to say? Is that part lost? No, it's not necessarily, right? Because Rick has bought out the game and put it on an external battery, and it's appropriately managed in the giant warehouse wherever it is, right? But yeah, I think is that percentage that stayed behind any worse than what Rick could have done with a mind blower's gag or anything else? Like, who's to say, right? Like, so I don't think there's going to be long-term consequences where 3 seasons from now we're going to be like, well, let's go back to the Rick and Mort well-lived episode and think again about how Morty's personality changed after that episode. I don't think that's going to be something that we do long term. So
yeah, and it may not be. It would be maybe potentially interesting to explore what, with the time dilation that exists within Roy. The same dilation they used to create the tech within the thing to get the spaceships to go beyond the game's borders. Like what kind of mini society continues to grow within the Roy game, and then if that is transferred into Morty again, what the stakes of that would be long term.
That would be really interesting. That could be the coolest callback to this episode, would be something like that for sure. Yeah. Much like I have somebody I work with who's always begging to bring back the car battery realities and go revisit Rick's car batteries and see what those societies have cooked up since they were responsible for keeping Summer safe. So over in the chat, Coas 111, do you think this is a bit of a take on Free Guy? I think it could be. I don't think if this was intended to be a Free Guy reference, I think it would have been a little bit more on the nose, or they would have heightened more video game tropes, I think, within the episode to really drive that point home. But there are some things in terms of knowing you're within a video game and things like that definitely have come up in the episode. So it is a good point. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else from the episode, or either A or B sides that you're kind of sticking in your head before we get into some of our favorite bits?
No, there is some interesting, more philosophical stuff to talk about, but I leave it to Squanch if those guys are doing.
Yeah,
all right.
they're. I don't know. Are they still making episodes? I haven't seen
I don't
one.
know. I don't know. Let us know if Squanch if Squanch is still doing that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
they're the ones that really focus on that aspect of things. We're bottom feeders when it comes to having
thing.
studied all that. But
But if they are gone and there's a vacuum that needs filling, let us know. Anyway, moving on to our favorite bits from this episode. This is just a whole smorgasbord of lines that I think we really liked from the episode. Starting off with, man, we're just cool, bad kids doing young stuff. Every time I rewatch this episode, I just crack up with that line. I think it's great.
Yeah. You talk about how like kind of jarring, and there's some episodes where they start in kind of confusing places, and you talk about this at the top of the discussion. But yeah, like when we knew that it was a Roy episode, but like coming into it like that, where you're like Royland's doing a lot of voices. It took a minute to be like, what's actually going on here? After a couple rewatches, you're like, okay, this is a teenage boy's interpretation of all the stuff that's going on.
You want to kiss with our mouths?
So going into the Die Hard stuff, breaker, walkie-talkie. I got your walkie-talkie, bitch. Those walkie-talkies, by the way, every time they talk to the walkie-talkies, like it's like,
the little like, it almost makes you think of like the Flintstones when all their technology was different forms of like dinosaurs and prehistoric animals. The sentient walkie-talkies was a nice little note in this one as well.
It's a living.
They aren't idiots, Grandpa. They're me. Ha! You'll get how funny that is when we get back. As I say it, not as funny, but I thought it was funny in the episode. There's also a line about Morty thinking ill of his dad or something, and Rick again thinks it's funny when they'll get back, that because Morty within the context of the game doesn't know who Jerry is. He doesn't really know who Morty is. So I don't know. I think it's a funny joke that Rick's calling him an idiot without really calling him an idiot.
Running the Die Hard thing into the ground when Summer is in the background just going, Die Hard, Die Hard, Die Hard.
No, yeah, I can't get enough of that. Do I have to watch Die Hard to understand what's happening? That is the question. Let us know. The raw one.
I don't think you need to watch Die Hard to understand what's happening, but I think it gives you context. So I'm more of an old school hip hop man. Yeah, that's a good bit. Look, I'll be the first to say it. There's a lack of diversity, or
yeah, great lines.
I like when Marta says, and you have it here, when she's fighting Robot Roy, and he's like, "Oh, you just jinxed it," and then Marta's like, "Do you think I jinxed her?" About Summer's Die Hard.
Yeah. I can't for the life recall the main villain's name. Do they even say it in the episode?
I say Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber. Jans Fluber. But he does refer to her as a most worthy Yankee Doodle ruffian.
I don't know what the actual line is.
And then when he says, walkie, as you would say, walkie dokie die hard motherfucker, and he like lengthens it out, and Summer cracks up at that. Both very funny moments for me.
I talking about language. When Marta's calling out her dad, like, we're just a 14-year-old boy. Like, this is just what you think. The Jewish language says. Like, yeah, the thing on your head. The falafalutin.
Yeah, yeah.
all the fake Yiddish cracked me up.
I referenced it earlier. The Raiders of the Lost Ark sort of ending with the Roy machine going into that storage, and then them calling it out and being like, "No, everything's tracked. It's easy to find." I thought it was a nice little twist.
Yeah. When two parts for this. One where they're like, just tell us you love us, and then Rick doesn't. He pauses, and then the one guy in the monitor is like, even if he does answer, like, why the pause?
Yeah.
And then going directly into holy war, holier war, holiest war. Just that's funny. And like Rick's whole intention of not making it religious whatsoever. He's like, it's not a religion thing. It's you are all. It's us and it's simulation, and still it turns into a holiest war.
Yeah.
We talk about the 8% a lot in this in the podcast right now. They reference 8%. The bit about 8% not mattering, about 8% of the Snyder Cut was Batman dreaming. The other 16%, easy joke, incoming, sorry, slow motion.
Fair enough. You also have good enough news in here. There's a nice little in-game news station that they had to make up. So good enough news as well. Well done. We always try to highlight some of the best and worst parts of the episode. For me, I think potentially one of the best parts of this episode is when Larry's on his deathbed. That's Marta's father, and he is fighting for his life. And Marta explains that we're not getting on the ship. We're not going back to become Morty, and he insists on getting out this final zinger. Who do I make the check out to? Best daughter ever, Incorporated. The delivery on that line, and just the fact that those are his last words, it kills me. I crack up every time I watch it.
That is adding the Incorporated adds the genius to that joke.
It's the icing on the cake.
Yeah. Like eight. There's billions of you. You're all the same daughter. Incorporated. Dying. Yeah. That I would say that cracked me up. It killed me. Not as much as it killed Larry, but definitely.
There you go.
Definitely. So hey, head out to Twitter, head out to Instagram or Facebook. Let us know what you thought of the episode. The folks here over in the Twitch chat, thank you for hanging out. There are one adding comments about fractions adding up. 8% of pizza is crust. It's true. I generally don't eat the crust, but
Depends on the crust and how hungry I am.
Yeah, that's true. If it's stuffed crust, maybe with
Also,
maybe a little bit of extra,
if
like,
there's a
marinara
buttery
sauce.
dipping sauce or something, then
yeah,
get out of 10.
Oh,
Changes everything.
For sure. I do read Rar1 mentioning the kitchenette. You say, "Oh, such red carpet treatment." What'd you say? No. We're all Mortys. Just some of us more important than others. I love that a little bit. But anyways, yeah, let us know what you thought of the episode. If you have not seen Die Hard, any of the Die Hards, let us know your opinion on whether or not you thought that took away from the episode, or if it added, or if it understood it, if it was still as on the nose or humorous as it was to us. And if you here's an extra bit. If you watch this episode, you hadn't seen Die Hard, but then you watched Die Hard after the episode and then watched it again, also let us know, because I'd be interested in your opinion.
Yeah. Give us that feedback. Let us know, and maybe we'll short you out on a future episode in a segment we like to call listener suggestions and short outs.
Nice.
This week, couple of short outs. One from our YouTube comments. Pink Duck Princess Uwu, always giving us some feedback. I mentioned last week how I would love some STL files of the Wormageddon statues. My campaign continues, and Pink Duck Princess agreeing they would love some if they release some STL files. Didn't even think of that. Yeah, I want to print some Wormageddon statues. Let's make it happen, Adult Swim. Let's find a way.
Scan that, and I can make it like a 3D scan.
I don't want the Rick head.
Oh,
I'll see it in 2 days. I'll see it with my own eyes. What I want is I want the Rick on the toilet. I want Mr. Poopy Butthole in his apartment, right? Like I want little 3D statues that I can put on my desk and I can paint with acrylic paints, and I can just be alone with my hobbies. Anyway, moving on to Twitch. Couple of new followers over on Twitch. Seahouse77 and the other guy. Thank you for following over on Twitch. You guys are amazing. What else we got, Brandon?
We have a review, a new review on Apple Podcasts. The title is More Knowledge and Personality Than I Can Handle. It is a 5-star review. These guys are freaking phenomenal. I'm an average Rick and Morty fan, but I always find myself coming back to this podcast to listen to Brandon and Travis, as they're not only hilarious, but know far too much about Rick and Morty. F the review who says they're boring. That person is boring. Love these dudes. Wee! Exclamation point.
Thank you, Destroyage. Yeah.
Thank you, Destroyage. I wish I knew who you were and where I could find you.
Yeah.
So I could kiss you on the lips. I wish I could make it. I wish I.
That's just okay. We're gonna move on before we get in trouble here. That is our show, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you're joining us here on Twitch, do not go anywhere. We are going to stick around for the Twitch only post show. We'll talk more about the episode with you and anything else you want to talk about. If you want to be part of that conversation, don't miss out. Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. We go live over on Twitch. Be part of the show. Have your comments saved forever in YouTube glory. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you have not rated or reviewed this show, you could definitely do that. It will help others to find the show as well. Thanks to everybody that's continuing to support us. And until next week, I'm Travis.
And I'm Brandon. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.